In the world of high-stakes intelligence, just going with your gut, well, that can have deadly consequences. So how do spies and analysts make these massive, critical decisions without letting their own biases get in the way? Turns out they have a secret weapon. It's a powerful mental tool straight out of the CIA's playbook called the analysis of competing hypotheses. And today, we're going to break down exactly how you can use this same technique in your own life.
But before we get into that, let me ask you something. Think about the last time you heard a really surprising piece of news, maybe something that popped up on your phone. Did you, immediately form an opinion about it? And then was it kind of hard to shake that first impression, even when more facts started to trickle in? Yeah, we all do that. It's totally normal. And there's a very specific scientific reason why our brains work that way.
And that reason is called confirmation bias. Here's the thing. Our brains are basically efficiency machines. They're not really designed to find the absolute truth. They're designed to find the quickest answer that makes sense. So the moment we land on a story that feels right, our brain goes into overdrive, looking for any little piece of information that supports that story. And at the same time, it puts on blinders to anything that might contradict it. It's a mental shortcut that becomes a cognitive trap. And every single one of us falls in.
All right, first things first, let's really dig into this trap, the confirmation bias trap. Why our brains get it wrong.
Okay, so think of it this way. The moment you have that first idea, your brain doesn't act like a scientist or an impartial judge. Oh no. It instantly becomes a lawyer for that idea. Its one and only job is to build the strongest possible case for it. We unconsciously start building this perfect little story in our heads. And any piece of data, any fact that doesn't neatly fit into that narrative, it just gets ignored, filtered out, tossed aside. It just doesn't compute. So the big question is, how do we break out of this mental prison? How do we stop being our own idea's lawyer? Well, we need to completely flip the script. And that's where this new way of thinking comes in. Analysis of competing hypotheses, or ACH for short. And this right here is the absolute game changer, the core difference. Normally, our brain's default question is, what evidence supports my theory? How can I prove I'm right? But the ACH approach forces us to ask a totally different question. A much harder but way more powerful question. What evidence contradicts each theory? How could I prove this idea wrong? See the difference? It's a complete 180.
Richard Hoyer, he's the CIA analyst who actually came up with this whole system, put it perfectly. He said the hypothesis with the most evidence is not necessarily correct. The hypothesis with the least contradictions often is. Think about that. It's easy to find stuff that supports your idea. The real challenge, the real test of a theory, is seeing if it can stand up to contradictory evidence. We're not looking for the most popular theory. We're hunting for the toughest one, the one that's the hardest to break. And that's the brilliant and, frankly, kind of brutal power of ACH. It's all about rigor. It doesn't let you get lazy and just stop at the first answer that seems good enough. No way. It forces you to generate all the possible explanations. I'm talking every single one, even the crazy, outlandish ones you'd normally dismiss. And then it makes you test every single one of them against the exact same evidence.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, how does this actually work in practice? Well, the engine at the heart of this entire process is a simple but powerful tool called the disproof matrix. The whole thing really boils down to 3 main steps. First, you cast a super wide net. You generate all the possible hypotheses you can think of, no judgment allowed. Second, you list out all the available evidence, every single fact you have. And third, and this is the most important part, you completely change your goal. You're not looking for the theory with the most supporting evidence. Nope. You're hunting for the one that's the hardest to disprove, the one with the fewest holes in it. Which brings us right back to that matrix. How on earth do you rate all that evidence against all those different hypotheses in a way that makes sense? Well, you need a really clear, simple rating system. So here's the scale they use. You've got very consistent and consistent at the top. That's fine, that's what you'd expect. But where the real magic happens is at the bottom. An I for inconsistent is a red flag. It tells you something is wrong with that theory. But a double I, very inconsistent, that's basically a kill shot. A double I means that if this hypothesis were true, this piece of evidence should be pretty much impossible. It's a direct, fatal contradiction. Okay, let's look at a simple example to see how this works. We've got 2 hypotheses. It was an inside job or an external hack. Now look at the first piece of evidence, E1, no forced entry. For an inside job, yeah, that's very consistent, a CC. But for an external hack,
That makes almost no sense. That's very inconsistent, and I. And that one rating, that single I, is what we call diagnostic evidence. It does all the heavy lifting because it seriously damages the external hack theory, even if other clues like E2 fit both.
And I'm going to say this again, because if you only remember one thing, this is it. The goal is not to find the theory with the most CCs or Cs. That's our old way of thinking. The goal is to find the one with the fewest Is and IIs. You are on a mission to destroy theories, to poke holes in them. The one that's left standing, the one that's the most resilient to your attacks, that's your most likely answer. It's all about disconfirmation, not confirmation.
All right, I know this sounds like a lot of work, so why bother? What's the payoff? Well, it's huge, because when you're done, you don't just have an answer. You have a conclusion that is practically bulletproof.
What this process really does is act like a shield against a whole bunch of our worst mental habits. It crushes satisficing. You know, that tendency to just grab the first good enough answer? It stops you from anchoring on your first idea and never letting go. And because it's so structured, it's an amazing tool for fighting groupthink. That thing that happens when everyone on a team just agrees to avoid conflict, even if the idea is bad.
And what's really cool is what you have at the end. It's basically a complete, transparent map of your entire thought process. It's like showing your work in math class. You can literally point to the matrix and show someone exactly why you landed on your conclusion and, just as importantly, why you rejected all the other ones. Your reasoning isn't just a gut feeling anymore. It's solid, it's transparent, and it's completely defensible.
But, okay, wait a minute. There's a potential weak spot here, right? What if one of those key pieces of evidence, that one I rating that totally torpedoed another theory, what if that evidence turns out to be wrong or misinterpreted? Well, the beauty of ACH is that it actually has a built-in safety check for this exact problem.
It's a step called sensitivity analysis. Think of it like a stress test for your conclusion. Because you have the matrix, you can easily see which pieces of evidence are the linchpins of your whole argument, usually the ones with those big II ratings. So you ask yourself, if this one piece of evidence was removed, would my entire conclusion change? If the answer is yes, congratulations. You've just found the most critical, sensitive point in your analysis. And that tells you exactly where you need to go back and double and triple check your facts. So, I want to leave you with a final thought, a challenge really. Think about something you believe really, truly, strongly. Could be anything. Now, what if you were forced to run that belief through this process? What if you had to honestly, genuinely search for evidence that disproves it? Do you think it would survive the test? What might you learn if, just for a little while, you stopped trying to prove yourself right and started trying to prove yourself wrong?